Hello, my name is Gil Morgan. I am a physician in Sweden and your host for We Oncologists ESO Presents. On behalf of the European School of Oncology and myself, we welcome you to this presentation on how social media can impact oncology and how to get started. This is officially our first presentation for 2020. We thank you very much for supporting this initiative and look forward to bringing you more presentations throughout the year. So on January 15, 2009, U.S. Airways Flight 154 was leaving New York City as it always does. Upon its ascent, it experienced some problems, and the pilot was forced to make an emergency landing in the middle of the Hudson River. This is something that many in New York City saw in real time, and as people were going to work, one particular person by the name of Janice Crumbs took a picture and he put it out on Twitter. What Janice didn't know was happening is that his tweet would forever change the way that we get our news. No longer were the big networks a sort of breaking news, but rather our social networks. On March 2nd, 2014 at the Oscars, comedian Ellen DeGeneres takes advantage of a particular situation and a great social network to take an innocent selfie. Little did she know that the impact of one single picture at the right place at the right time could do. Her photo was retweeted 2.4 million times, seen by 8.1 million people for a total of 32.8 million times. This under the span of an hour. In January 12, 2010, in the country of Haiti, a magnitude 7 earthquake hits close to the capital of Port-au-Prince on the 12th of January. This was repeated a week later on the 20th of January with a magnitude 6 earthquake. Haiti is a developing country with fragile infrastructure, which was heavily affected due to this earthquake. One thing that was different was the coverage that Haiti received in social media. The world was watching as Haiti was going through this dark time, and they responded. There was aid in the form of money and food coming into the country. Websites that were being established to find missing people and raise awareness and recruit volunteers. And through testimony of people participating in the crisis camps, there was awareness in social media. July to August of 2014, worldwide. The ALS Association started with the Ice Bucket Challenge as a way to not only raise awareness, but to raise funds for ALS. This challenge was a hit, as the world was participating and many social media personalities were not left behind. What appears to be a fun gimmick of people showering actually turned out to be a brilliant campaign that showered scientists with money. So much that $115 million were raised, and because of that, a new gene tied to ALS was discovered. So you might be thinking, this is all great, but how does this involve me? And how does that affect the development of a scientist, a clinician, a nurse, or a patient advocate? And most importantly, how does this help us in the fight against cancer? Well, let's take the lessons of the previous examples. U.S. Airways Flight 154 taught us that news are now in our fingertips. Not only are we receiving the news, but we're also capable of reporting the news. You have the power to inform. The Haiti earthquake taught us that social media is not about vanity, it's about helping and using your network for the greater good. The ALS Challenge taught us that with the right campaign, we can raise money and awareness for the things that we love. And most importantly, the Ellen DeGeneres selfie taught us that we shouldn't underestimate the importance of a selfie if it was taken in the right place at the right time and with the right network. Before we start, let's take a second to talk about the light and dark side of social media. The dark side doesn't just have cookies, it actually is a way to have private discussions and share them behind the scenes. These are your WhatsApps, Messengers, WeChats, and anything that is not out in the open. The majority of this tutorial will be focused on the power of the force, the light side of social media. Facebook, YouTube, and most importantly, for the sake of this presentation, Twitter. So back in ASCO 2019, A specific pattern was seen by patient advocate by the name of Lisa Bernstein, who works with Simpler. We saw that the doctor engagement during the Congress continued to increase and that colleagues were definitely embracing social media. There was an increase of 41% compared to 2015, which is in itself a very good indicator of how things are going. However, there was a flip side to the coin. This increase came with a drastic decline of patient advocate engagement. This was alarming, and it got me thinking that there is a very big important aspect between having a good relationship between the doctor, the nurse, and the scientist, and the patient advocate, and that something needed to be done. So what is my intent with this presentation? Let me give you the breakdown. I hope to answer the 3 questions we started with. How can social media help you? How can it help your professional development? And most importantly, the role it can have contributing to the fight against cancer. Once I have convinced you, which I'm pretty sure I will, I can give you an introduction on how to get started. I can help you in the formulation of your strategy and end with giving you practical tips on how to stay on top of things. So if you haven't opened a Twitter account by now it's the time to do so. Social media can help in more ways than you think. In terms of education, social media is the key. This is not only the education that comes to you through specific websites, but also your colleagues. If you want an example of this, the presentation you are watching now was made by a colleague with colleagues in mind. There is also the education you give. You will also have the possibility to share your knowledge and ideas. This will come in the form of education. Those that follow you will learn, and this will cycle because they will in turn educate other people. Social media gives you the opportunity to keep up to date with all the latest trials and all the practice-changing research that is happening. One other thing is patient engagement. Patient engagement has the potential to change oncology in the best way. This is by being in the same conversations, in the same venues, we're able to share experiences more openly. One of my favorite quotes is, just as an oncologist is an expert at treating cancers, patient and patient advocates are expert on what it's like to live with cancer. This is not a one-way street. There is so much we can learn from our patients if we just listen. So take advantage of this dialogue. Through the participation of social networks, groups in Twitter, Facebook, and other, you will be able to connect and expand your network. This network, if formulated right, will give you every day the most current news that your friends and your network are sharing. They will give you the information from conferences in real time. One thing that will inevitably happen is that with your engagement, you will become a key opinion leader, and your thoughts and opinions will have great value. Through the help of social network, you will be able to share not only your thoughts and opinions, but your research and your research interests. Through the use of specific hashtags, you can make sure that the right people are hearing what you're saying. This facilitates not only the spreading of your ideas, but also the ability to work with other people. If you're looking for collaborators, you can always approach them by following and direct messaging them or just mentioning them in your post. This is being a two-way street will facilitate the way that collaborators find you, and they will approach you. Remember that you come as a package. Although your opinions are your own, your institution can also gain. If you become a key opinion leader and shine, I promise you, so will they. And this is always a positive thing in the eyes of any employer. This also means that you will have a reputation, and this will follow you no matter where you go. So if you are seeing employment somewhere else in the future, your reputation is something that your employer will gain from. Finally, how can this aid in the fight against cancer? Well, this is actually more than lip service. It does work. Social media can be used to educate about clinical trials and encourage participation. This will in turn stimulate recruitment. Take, for example, imagine you live in Houston, Texas, and you're on the lookout for a clinical trial. Well, you would just look down the road and see that MD Anderson has plenty of clinical trials. But now imagine that you're in the same situation and you live in a small rural community in Iowa. It's not as easy. So, what social media has the potential to do is to recruit via distance and give people access who historically have not had it. The information being shared also aids in the fight against cancer. Communities like BCSM or LCSM, this is breast cancer social media or lung cancer social media, have weekly chats where not only patients and advocates share ideas, but also many oncologists are there to inform and answer questions and do their share of education. In the area of cancer prevention, there have been a number of studies showing that through education and with the support of the material that has been developed by institutions such as the NCI and the World Health Organization, it can have a large impact in risk reduction, like in the examples of implementation of vaccines and anti-smoking campaigns. Last but definitely not least is the support that these social networks can provide. This is support that patients can have, and we as oncologists can actually have for patients in terms of compliance. So, by giving people support, we're able to keep compliance higher during treatment. So, in order to make things a little more personal, let me show you how I got started. 5 to 6 years ago, I joined the ESMO Young Oncologist group on Facebook and started making friends and in turn expanding my network. Through great opportunities like ESMO preceptorships and master classes, I was able to expand it even more. The Facebook group became a great way to communicate and talk about issues regarding young oncologists. 4 years ago, I noticed the trend among our American colleagues and the importance of Twitter. So I saw here not only were congresses and symposiums reported, but it was a great source for new science that was coming out. So I dedicated myself to having a presence and an opinion on Twitter. This eventually led me to pursue a second account that was solely based on education, which is the one you're watching. Along with the European School of Oncology, we started hosting We Oncologists ESO Presents, and this was a way to bring high-quality ESMO guideline-based presentations all over the world, cost-free, with no need to sign up for anything. A year ago, I had the feeling that something was missing from oncology social media, and that was a feeling of togetherness. There were a lot of personal opinions, and if you wanted to have a good view of what was happening in oncology, you had to follow many accounts. What I wanted was to develop a network of key opinion leaders in oncology and have an account through social media that we could all tweet and use a specific hashtag. So we developed OncoAlert, which has now become OncoAlert 360. This has developed into the biggest oncology social media network that is for oncologists by oncologists. What originally started as 10 oncologists we wanted to make a difference has expanded to 110 members. We are no longer just oncologists. This now expands through medical radiation and surgical oncologists, but also oncology nurses, basic cancer researchers, and most importantly, our patient advocates that make up 10% of OncoAlert. So once one develops a network, it is not enough to stay in one place. There's a need to be in different platforms. In this case, there are Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The important thing, once the networks have been established, is to cross-reference the platforms. This is an example of Facebook, and as we can see, there are 3 different kinds of pages. We Oncologists ESO for education, the daily tweet that was meant to bring colleagues from Facebook into Twitter and to make them more comfortable with the interaction between the 2 platforms, and finally OncoAlert, the same content found on the Twitter OncoAlert account, but on Facebook, so we can make sure that we are covering those colleagues that do not want to leave Facebook. And of course, nothing can be done by yourself, so we have our amazing colleagues, Petra and Katsuki, who are the editors of OncoAlert, Instagram, and Facebook. I one cannot do everything. So this is actually a very important thing, is that you need to also use people in your network to contribute, and they will surprise you with the amazing job that they do. So the educational presentations continued, but as the network continued to grow, so did the possibility to get more presenters. So we have covered a broad range of subjects from pain management all the way to presentations like today, and help colleagues develop in every possible way in oncology. One way I was able to step out of the digital realm and back into the real world is through the use of networks. I was able to establish a dialogue with our great friends from the Danish Young Oncologists, and last year at Rigshospitalet, they hosted the first ever Danish-Swedish Young Oncologist Summit focusing on lung cancer. So proof that the right network can help you collaborate through bridges that were already there. In San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium this year, or last year, two OncoAlert patient advocate colleagues, Christine and Julia, came up with a Grasp Cancer poster walkthrough. This was a wonderful initiative where advocates, oncologists, and scientists had a poster walkthrough and discussed through the support of the network, we were able to get 14 people from OncoAlert, and there were other people that were involved, and the walkthrough was a success. But what was more of a success was breaking down of barriers between doctors and patient advocates. So have I convinced you so far? Of course I have. Now let's get started. So what do you need to start with? Well, start with you. Who are you? What do you want to say? Who do you want to say it to? The saying goes, people are going to have an opinion of you no matter what. You can wait and see what they think, or you can tell them, you can write the narrative. You can tell them who you are. A great way of starting is by taking 10 minutes and writing in a half sheet of paper who you are and what do you want. Then take 5 minutes and instead of writing on half a sheet, write a quarter of a sheet. Then take 1 minute and do the same thing, but everything has to fit in 2 sentences, maximum. These 2 sentences is who you are and what you should be writing in your social media profiles. This is your mission statement. So find your target audience, know where they're exchanging information, find out which continent they're in, and then focus your energy in the beginning to one specific platform. For the purpose of this presentation, we are going to focus on Twitter. That's where the majority of our colleagues are, and that's where information is being exchanged. And of course, all the collaborations are happening. As I mentioned before, you need a solid mission statement. In less than a minute, you should be able to explain who you are and what you want. What makes you special? You need to have something that will make you stand out from the bunch. This could be because of who you are or because what you can provide for them. Develop your network and your brand. As I mentioned with your brand, you are in a unique position to tell people who you are. Think about this before getting started. Your network are the people around you and who will support you, but who will also support your values and opinions. So make sure that they are all in sync. Be consistent with the content that you put out there. If this is a professional account, keep it professional. The number one thing is your profile pic. This has to be a shoulder picture with a clear view of you. Remember, this is a professional profile, and this is the first thing people see. Keep all personal content off the site the majority of the time. A few exceptions can be made, but make sure to keep it professional. Once you have committed to be there every day. People don't have to follow you, so make sure you give them a reason to. Provide whatever they need. Once they depend on the information you give, you can't fail them. You have to be there and you have to continue your service and to help others. Remember that your brand is definitely important, and that comes with your brand voice. It is important to commit. If you're going to be funny, be funny. If you're going to be serious, be all business, and your voice should show that. After a month or two, you should start seeing what your followers want from you. You need to address their needs in order to keep them. Make sure you're always observing and listening, and do not be afraid to adapt depending on the need. Lastly, the most important is the unwritten law of social media, and that's the 80-20 rule. That means that for every 20% that you talk about yourself and your interests, 80% should be about something else. It should definitely cover the needs of your viewers and, of course, support your network. This keeps you from becoming that person that is self-focused and will actually help you in developing a nice, healthy network. Make sure that all you publish is seen as quality, not just fluff. One way to assure this is to have original tweet, not many a day, just stick to one original tweet a day. And of course, this is sometimes you get the question of, well, what is an original tweet? This could be as simple as an article that you really find fascinating, or the latest news on a new drug that has just been given FDA approval. This is a good example of a good original tweet. You can give your conclusions. During the day, you can retweet a couple of tweets, but I would advise you to, just for the sake of not saturating your followers, to just go ahead and keep it to about one original and about 3 retweets. So it is important that once you made that daily commitment, especially if you're doing that one original tweet, that you keep that daily commitment and that you're always there. So make sure that you cross-promote your platforms and networks, support the people in your network, and of course, if it's the people that actually believe in the same message that you are promoting, and of course, you believe the message that they are spreading. Make sure you make good use of images. Like, for example, this is a really good GIF of a lung, smoker's lung. It makes an impact. You don't really have to say much because the picture speaks for itself. And of course, video. In social media, it is said that video is king. So if you are at a congress or at a meeting, do not be afraid to point that camera at yourself and give people a breakdown of what you have learned. I guarantee you they will definitely appreciate it. This is the big one. Include hashtags. Hashtags are like maps to where you want to go. I always tell people to imagine they're going to be giving the speech after winning the Nobel Prize and everything's ready to go. But if you have the wrong map, you will not be led to Stockholm, but to a McDonald's in rural Iowa where the same speech may not get the same reaction. So use the right hashtags to make sure you end up in the right places at the right time. Make sure you always listen to your network, what they need from you, and what you can do better to actually meet their needs. Lastly, tell, don't sell. If you are tweeting on a specific paper, I like to give at least the least amount of spin possible. You can give the conclusions, and there's really no way to spin the conclusions and make people have their own personal opinion. I believe that people are smart and they will make their own conclusions. Here's a great slide of hashtags from a paper by your colleague Matthew Katz. And these are a great thing to have on your phone. And I believe that every oncology tweet should include one of these hashtags. And this will give your tweet more exposure and a wider reach. And of course, don't forget our network hashtag of OncoAlert. So, continuation of the practical tips. Make sure you're in the right conversations, and not just with oncology colleagues, but also with our patient advocate colleagues. Join discussions and give your insight. You would be surprised how much it will be appreciated. You just have to be a little provocative, ask questions, and dare to make statements. You can have your own opinion, and you can have your own thoughts. People want to hear them. Through participation on such discussions, you will undoubtedly develop as a key opinion leader. With the status, you will certainly face questions and comments, and you will be engaged. So once you're engaged, make sure that you engage quickly. Make sure that you answer whatever questions are put on you. But don't feel like you have to engage trolls. Trolls are not looking for discussion. They're just there to get notoriety. So make sure to pick your fights accordingly. And of course, fights are really, I don't think that fights are something that should be on social media. So I would suggest not to engage too much. So you have to make sure that you have a strong collegiate network. These are not just doctors, but you should include nurses, scientists, and advocates. It is possible to track your progress through sites like Simpler. And remember that it is not about the amount of followers, because I would much rather have 100 dedicated colleagues than 10,000 that do not engage. So now that you're ready for the Twitter universe, let's break down the anatomy of a tweet. The name you choose is important. Here I recommend you always put your name. The username, and that is the @ in my case it's @WeOncologist. Here you have to be creative, but make sure that it's relevant to your mission statement. When you're mentioning someone, make sure that you tag their user handle. In this case, someone is tagging the @New York Times Theater. And if there's a congress or a meeting, it will no doubt have the official hashtag. So make sure you know the official hashtag and make sure that you use it. So in this case, it's the Tony Award. Had it been ESMO, it would be ESMO 19 or ASCO 19. Yeah. So lastly, there will be surely a link with more information to what you're reporting on. So make sure that you also add the link. Now let's see that in practice. Here's a tweet by our friend Matteo Lambertini, congratulating another one of our great friends, Evandro Yasambuja. This is on the publishing a specific study, which has the hashtag Lorelei. These results were published on the Lancet, so they tagged @The Lancet. And of course, adding the right hashtags. Hashtag breast cancer, hashtag BCSM, and of course, hashtag OncoAlert. So the key points of this presentation: develop your brand. Take the time to study and engage your community. Make sure that you're meeting the needs of your followers. Lead your community. Make sure that when you develop as a key opinion leader, you are there, and you're there to address whatever question comes up. Have a solid network. This means that your network should be also key opinion leaders and influencers, not just as colleagues, but it can be patient advocates, it could be nurses, it can be scientists. This is how you get a nice 360 view of a good network. Make sure that what you produce is quality content. It's not about putting out 20 tweets a day. I would much rather one specific tweet and for it to be quality. That way followers know exactly what to expect from you. Once you make that daily commitment, make sure that you keep that daily commitment and that you're there for the people that follow you. Be active, join the chats, engage, and do not forget the 80-20 rule. You do not want to become someone that is perceived as self-focused or self-serving. My recommendation, work on having your specific hashtag. For example, with our network is hashtag OncoAlert. Last but not least, before you send that tweet, take more than 2 seconds to look it over. I can count many times where I have thought about a great tweet, I formulated, I created it, and I sent it only to find out that something was misspelled. And that makes something that could have been wonderful or could have had a really big impact have less of an impact. So just take a minute to look over that tweet, because once you send it, it's gone. So I thank all of our colleagues for their attention, and I look forward to seeing everyone on Twitter. Don't be afraid to a slow start. Social media can be a powerful tool if used right. And even 12 followers can actually help you change history. So good luck, everyone. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you have enjoyed this presentation. We look forward to seeing you on the next presentation, which will be in 2 weeks, which will be our colleague Roberto Ferreira talking about hyperprogression. Thank you very much, and good evening.